In this episode of the Toolbox, I'm going to show you how to work with my favorite tooling platform called Vite. I've got a few surprises in this short segment and tons of other things to discuss. So let's get started. Hello, everyone. This is Remy Jalobos, and I stream about front-end and full-stack tools Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Pacific. So follow me and subscribe on all the social media things for additional content. Now, if you want to watch any past episodes, make sure you take a look at my blog, which is rabo.org. So you can see that right there. You may notice that I am currently mic'd, which I don't usually like to put on the headsets. But guess what? Like right before the show, I must have nudged something and lost the audio. So let me know if you can't hear me. You should be able, this should be like fantastic sound actually. So hopefully everything is working. And let's get started with a section or a segment that I call the shorts. And then we're going to talk about Vite. And I have a little tip on terminal that's going to help you with getting to your past history, which I thought was pretty awesome. I learned about it this week. And I've got this tool call. Actually, let's get started with the shorts. And the first tool that I want to show you is called Oh My Shell. So it's Oh My SH. And let's see if I can make this a little bit bigger. So this is essentially like an addition, or it's like a framework for your terminal. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but if you're a terminal person like me, this is going to kind of give you additional ways of doing things directly in the terminal. It's pretty easy to set up, and you can add a bunch of plugins. So the terminal is usually pretty boring. Let me go ahead and pull up my terminal app. Let's clear this out. And you can see that my terminal looks a little bit nicer. It's a little bit color coded. That happens to be from this Oh My Shell program. Let's see if I can pull up my config file. So this is the config file that you use to configure. Once you install Oh My Shell, you'll get this .c shell rc file. So by default, when you get a Mac, it comes with C shell. You can get it in other platforms as well. So it's a pretty modern shell that normally does a lot of stuff, but I do love that it comes with a lot of themes. So this theme that I have is called Unraveler, and there's like a couple of hundred themes that you can use. And but the cool thing is once you configure it, you can add additional plugins. So you can have, for example, like a Git plugin, a copy directory files, and there's one plugin that you really have to have, and it's called Seashell Auto Suggestions. So I think I have a link. Yeah, so this, no, actually, this is the auto suggestion plugin right here. So what it does is essentially autocomplete for the shell. And when I'm in my terminal, let's clear this out, I can type in like npm, and it's going to suggest the last time I ran the npm command. So this is almost like hitting the up arrow. But it just suggests, whatever you've been doing. So for example, I was editing like the C shell, or I opened up the C shell with Atom. And so I just type in A, and it gives me the rest of the command. So really changed my workflow when I'm working with the terminal. Also, there is another plugin that I loved called Web Search. So you can actually, if you're on the terminal and you want to look something up, then you could just use any of these platforms. So I work for Microsoft, so I should be like using Bing. Let's see, Bing, I don't know, man pages. And then let's see, LS, why not? So this is going to pull up your favorite search engine. I prefer Bing. And show you a list of, whatever you type in the terminal. So it's just like a quick way, if you happen to be in the terminal, to type in a command to the man pages. So, or really anything else, it just does a quick search in any of the search engines. I am totally loving, I am never going back to not having all those sort of features. And you can still, add in your own little sort of, if you looked at my C shell and Atom, you see that I still have all my preferred sort of aliases in here. Yeah, you can specify your editor and all that stuff. And I like to keep a very small prompt, because I think it's distracting when I'm teaching things to see like the gargantuan prompt that would probably be better if you were just developing. So let's see. I actually have a little tip about history that I wanted to share with you. So let's go ahead and play that right now. And so this is a tip that I recorded for you on history. So let's check it out. If you're like me, you're probably used to hitting the up arrow on your terminal until you find a previous command. Now, that can take a long time, and it's pretty inefficient. Now, there's a much better way to do this, and that's with the history command. You'll see a list of all the previous commands that you can run. Notice that there's a number next to each of them. You can type in an exclamation mark and then the number of the command and hit return again. After you hit return, the command will come up, and then you can just hit return again. Now, there's also a couple of other shortcuts that you can use. If you type in an exclamation point and then a string of a previous command, it'll get you the most recent command with the string you specified. If for some reason you want to clear the history, you can issue a history -c command. Just like with everything else in Linux, there's a lot of other options that you can use. So check it out. Yeah, I totally love this history. I don't know about you, but I have sometimes hit the up arrow like 50, 60 times to get to some command that I know I have in there. So I really dig the fact that you can just do a history. Somebody did ask a good question. What's an alias? Oops. Sorry. I just got out of the chat over here. So let's pull up the comments. So I'm getting some good stuff. So an alias is a way to create a shortcut in, and you probably were looking at my configuration. So this is what I do for my normal ls command actually shows everything nice and color coded without a lot of data. I just want to show everything in one column and all that other stuff. But so it means if I did a normal ls, my directory wouldn't look like that. So I'm replacing the normal ls command with my preferred version of my ls command. And I have a shortcut for the desktop. So if I'm in the terminal, then all I have to do is just do dsk, and that takes me to the desktop. Because I put, it's probably not good, but I put stuff in the desktop all the time. So, and then like I have my blog is on a directory, and so I just type in my name, and it takes me to that directory. So you can see it's on the 11T site, and then I can just open that up if I want to, or say like code, and get into my my blog project. So it's a really useful command, and you can, you know, um, configure this C shell dot C shell RC file pretty well. So make sure that you check it out. Um, that file is on your home directory, and then you can reconfigure the way things work. So one of the commands that I like is this tree command, which is a command to kind of show you the directory structure. So good question. I'm glad I'm getting some questions. So if I do like tree, I don't know if that site's going to be too big. That command's going to show me all the subfolders. I know that there is a command that can do this, but it's not available like in all platforms. So I just programmed that into my C shell. So if you are interested in my little sort of commands, maybe I should do another sort of video on that. So yeah, it's like a shortcut. So, and it can be pretty powerful. Let's see. Cool. Excellent question. Let's see. I sound great. Yeah, I know. I should sound better than ever because I had this is actually the headset that I normally record in. I have another super fancy setup that I was trying, and I don't know what I did. I think I just like nudged something the wrong way, and it was completely gone. And that's why I started like maybe a minute after I was supposed to. So let's keep on going with the shorts, which is what I call sort of my little segments. So I have my seashell. And then this week, this State of CSS poll released. This is one of the most important polls that happens every year for developers. And what I like about it is that it sort of shows you all of the latest features, and it asks a lot of questions about the features. So as you go through the survey, one of the advantages is that you're going to sort of test yourself to see how much stuff you know. Like it asks you, do you use CSS Grid? Yes. Subgrid, I know what it is, but I haven't really played around with it. Oh yeah, Flexbox, I love. Multi-column, multi-column. I don't know if it's like the old column. There's a lot of changes to CSS, but the nice thing about this survey is that when you take it, it's going to sort of let you know, I guess, how you're doing, but you also get a result, and it's kind of a good way to contribute to, the community just by taking it. Next year, I guess, or towards the end of the year, there will be like a really cool analysis of how everybody has answered. So if you have a chance, make sure you take that. And I think I do have like a link to that if you wanted to check that out. So I made like a short link because the link is a little bit long. If the links are long, then I'm trying to do that. Now, the next thing is I've heard a lot about this thing called, I've heard a lot about style components, but there's apparently this new framework called Stitches, and I've heard a couple of people mention it. So this is a way to create style components. So think about essentially being able to, handle your CSS in JavaScript. It sounds crazy, and some people really hate it. I have some great friends that don't like it. I've always been apprehensive about it. I know that if you're using something like, for example, if you're using, say, Vue.js, that is how Vue.js works, or React. You actually can do a lot of stuff in the JavaScript with your CSS, and I think it's really good for those component-based architectures. But more and more people are using it. I don't know. It looks like something that I should really sort of take a look at, maybe do another episode with Stitches or just some other style components. I don't know if anybody has used style components. Let me know. Let's see. I want to see if there's any thought. Somebody says that they thought that it might be pronounced sush. I have no idea. I really, one of the things that I really enjoy about Spanish is that the pronunciation is in the spelling. If you see the accent marks, they're actually there to show you how to pronounce things. So I don't know. I guess different people pronounce it differently. So that's all right. All right. So another, I am well known for being like a super geek and getting a lot of toys. So I wanted to share my latest cool toy. I thought we'd do something different. Normally I just show you like a bunch of websites. And I really love this new thing that I got called Lametric. It's not cheap, but what it does, it's a Wi-Fi clock. and it has like a little piece of the clock that's actually color, and the other piece is just pixelated like that. And it can do things like play your music. But for developers, there's a bunch of different apps that you can install. There's a lot of clock faces, but there's also a lot of different apps that you can install. And it works with if this, then that, and it has an API, so you can program it if you want to, but it does come with a lot of built-in things. So let's see. So I was going to show you mine. I think I have it on this channel right here. And let me pull up. So this is the clock right now. Let me hide the main thing. And also, let's go ahead and hide that banner. Let's see. Do I have a link to this thing? No, you could just find it in Amazon. It's not cheap. I think it was like $176. So definitely super pricey, but there's a lot of apps. So for example, you can find like my YouTube subscribers. So subscribe to YouTube. And this is my GitHub followers. So you can, it comes with a lot of built-in stuff, but there's a ton of apps that you can add. So here's a bunch of the different apps. I only have a few of them turned on right now. It does have a LinkedIn counter, but the LinkedIn counter is only for LinkedIn pages. It's not for just a regular LinkedIn profile, which is really what I would like. That's like top news. I mean, I tried some of the scrolling things and they were a little bit annoying. It does have Twitter, but I couldn't quite get it to work. And there's like an app store where you can download tons of other applications like a market. And there are tons of applications. You know, the reason I was looking for something much brighter because I did have a clock. I like to have a clock down there, sort of by the, but I have a TV that sits over there, and I like to have a clock just to know what time it is. And I had this clock that you had to like hit in order to turn bright. And so when it's far away, it doesn't make any sense. So this is nice. It's silly too, because I do have like the menu clock, but anyways, this is much geekier and you can program it. So I am really enjoying this dumb clock. So if you have tons of money to burn, then check out the super expensive and pricey clock there. I do have I thought I had done like a banner for that, but I guess I didn't. And I don't have any kind of affiliate link or anything like that on this, but if you wanted to check it out, this is really weird because they actually, they sell like a clock with a mini box cutter, which doesn't make any sense. I guess if you needed to open it, it wasn't like particularly difficult to open or anything. And it also has like a clock and a Stream Deck. This page doesn't make sense, but it is where I bought mine. So, all right, there's also something that I learned this week is that VS Code is having this super secret event on Thursday at like 11. I have no idea what it is, but you should go check it out because so you can go to aka.ms/live-VS Code and you can sign up for a for sort of like an alert to find out what's happening. So it's Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern. So I think that's 8 o'clock in the morning on Pacific. So yeah, I have no idea. I could ask, but I don't want to. I want to be surprised as well. And yeah, check it out. So so in addition to that, let's see if there's any other comments. I see a lot of stuff. Let's go back and let's see. Yeah, we're like at 1:20, so we got plenty of time. So let's see if there's any questions or anything. I don't see anything. Just some hellos from different people. So awesome! Thank you for coming. I really like it when people show up, and it's a lot more fun this way. So let me show you, I guess what you're here for is the Vite. So Vite is, or actually it's pronounced Vite. And it's at, let's see, Vite.js.dev. So Vite is essentially a framework or a tooling platform And I started all the way back. I think from the beginning, the first thing that we got was something called Grunt, and that was pretty cool because it let you kind of load things dynamically. And then I started using Gulp. Gulp was great, but as your workflows got a lot bigger, then it just became slower and slower as your projects got bigger and bigger. Then it just became slower and slower. So a lot of different platforms came out to like help sort of make that easier. The most popular or the most common known one was Webpack. I really had a hard time with Webpack because Webpack just sort of didn't make sense to me. You had like plugins and you had these ways of doing things that were a little bit confusing for me. So there's been a lot of other newer ones that came that have come up since then. So I think like Brunch, Rollup, ES Build. There's something very similar to this Vite called Snowpack that's pretty new. And I think I've tried all of them. Yeah, at least all the ones that I mentioned. And then this Vite came out, and I really like it because it's made by the same people, or it's made by Evan Yu and some other developers. So I did put the link to the VS Code event. I can put it up again. So yeah, there it is. So Evan Yu, who develops Vue.js and some other developers, developed this one. And if you've ever used Vue.js, the documentation is amazing. And then the CLI for Vue.js, I've always really loved because it's really easy to use and very clear. And the whole, that's the thing about Vue.js, that it just immediately makes sense to me. So it is, I always say that it is my favorite framework just because I immediately get what it's trying to do. React is gotten much better, but I still love Vue more. So when this framework, front-end tooling platform came out, I was really interested in essentially what it does, or I think the killer app or the amazing thing is that it is very opinionated about how to do things. It does something called HMR, hot module replacement. It does all the modern things, right? Out of the box support for like CSS. It supports Sass, Less and Stylus, TypeScript, JSX. So you can use this for React or Vue, and it just makes some decisions for you. Normally, I don't like that, but the decisions that it makes make a lot of sense. So I did a little demo of this to show you how it works, just putting together a project. So I'm gonna share that with you, and hopefully it'll make a lot more sense when you take a look at the demo. And get a project started. I'm going to start by switching over to the desktop, and then I'm going to issue the npm init and Vite latest as the target. Here, it'll ask you a bunch of questions about the type of project that you want. So I'm going to rename this Vite, and then you can choose a framework. I'm going to choose vanilla, which is regular JavaScript. Now here you have the option of choosing normal JavaScript or JavaScript with TypeScript. I'm going to go for regular vanilla JavaScript. And that's all there is to the setup. It scaffolds the project for you, places it where you specify, and it shows you the commands you need to run this project. Let's open this up in VS Code. We'll look at the files that it created for us. You can see that there's a git ignore file, so it's going to assume that you're using Git in this project, and it has some basic defaults right here. The package.json is pretty minimal, with one dependency and some scripts. Now, I don't know about you, but I hate it when build tools install way too much junk that I don't really need. So far, I like the decisions that Vite is making for me. Let's take a look at our index.html file. This is the entry point for our application. It's also going to resolve references to scripts, and that means even inline scripts as long as they have the type of module. Plus, it's going to take a look at any CSS code in here and resolve it as well. There's no need for special placeholders, and it also supports multiple HTML pages as entry points. Before we take a look at the CSS, keep in mind that there's no actual link to the CSS file from this page. There's nothing too interesting about the CSS file, except that it's actually coming from our JavaScript. Let's take a look at that file. And that's where the CSS is coming from. Other than that, it's just targeting our ID and then loading some HTML into it. I know this import statement and the CSS wasn't particularly interesting, but Vite gives you a lot of advanced CSS features. For example, you can use post CSS import statements, and it takes care of prefixing things if necessary. It also rebases all the links inside the CSS for you. You can even use CSS modules and treat your CSS like a JavaScript object. It has built-in support for Sass, less, and stylus out of the box. So that import statement is doing a lot of heavy lifting. Let's try doing something really useful with this. I'm going to start off by opening up my terminal and typing in the npm install, as well as the npm run dev to get this thing going. This will open up a live preview in your browser. I'm going to add a couple of files to my folder. One of them will be a small Markdown document, and then another one is going to be some data for me to load. The Markdown file is pretty simple, just a headline with some copy. And then the data.json has an object. Each object has a name, a description, and a list of items. One of the cool features of Git is that you can easily import data into your JavaScript. To do that, I'm going to install something called Markdown it. I'm going to open up a new terminal. Let's make this window a little bit bigger. And I'm going to do an npm install Markdown it, and I'll do the save option. This is going to let me process text into Markdown directly in my application. Now we can import the library into our main.js file. Importing items is one of the ways that Vite excels. You can import not just modules, but also data as well. We'll import our copy from our file. We'll add a question mark with a value of raw to import this as text into our copy variable. Now we can replace this code and use Markdown it to render our copy. One of the places where Vite excels is importing other JavaScript modules. It uses something called HMR, which is hot module reloading. It means that to speed up development, modules are updated individually without having to reload other modules. Let's go ahead and create another module. We'll go ahead and import our data file from the data.json file that we added earlier. To create a module, we'll export a function as a default for this module. And we'll go through each of the elements in our data.json file. And we'll feed all the data into this variable that we created called menu. Here I'm going to use a template literal. Since my project is already using Markdown, I'll go ahead and add the items from the file as Markdown elements. And I'll bring the category name here, as well as the category description. Then we'll return the menu object. Now let's go back into main.js, and we'll import this submodule, and then we'll import it also as a template literal. Now you do have to be really careful with the formatting. Let's go back into menu.js, and I'll need to get rid of this extra space. And you can't tell what's happening, but it's actually live reloading just the portion of the module that I updated. This time we'll add this as a headline level 3. And then we'll add the title. As well as the description here. And we'll do the price. And I'll go ahead and use Markdown to bold the price. Again, this is Markdown, so I'm going to need to add an extra carriage return. And I'll add a horizontal rule here between items. If I want to, I can install a version of Bootstrap. And since I have post CSS, I can just get rid of this and issue an import command for Bootstrap. And you can see the Bootstrap is loading. And it looks like it's being a little bit picky with my markdown, so I'll go ahead and fix that. All right, so hopefully you got a little bit of a taste of what it's like and why I really love it. It really just makes a lot of super smart decisions for you. I really love that you can just import any sort of data. It understands JSON natively, so all you do is just import a JSON file. You don't have to like async await, and you don't have to like also convert it to an object. It just knows that you're going to want that, puts it in an object. The way that it handles modules is really pretty sweet. And it's doing a lot of things in the background for you. So it's giving you a live reload. It's going to use all kinds of compression whenever you use the build tool. It's going to split the content up if it needs to. So it can inline your CSS. It really does have a ton of different options. And just like I fell in love with Vue.js, I fell in love with this thing pretty quickly because, again, it felt like the decisions that it makes immediately make sense to me as a build tool. It does have a lot of competition. There's a lot of things like Snowpack. Actually, on some of my projects, I switched to Snowpack, and then I saw Vite, and I switched to Vite. It's super similar. They're very similar. But I think Vite or Vite, I always mispronounce that. It's just making some decisions that I think are a little bit smarter. So let's see. Yeah, feel free to ask questions. Also, I do have this project on, let's see. I do have this project. If you want to play around with what I showed you, I do have this project on my GitHub repo. And remember this link. If you hit the period, you're gonna get like a live live coding environment. However, it does have build processes. So for this one, it's going to ask you to use code spaces. So you can hit this continue working on, and then you can use, if you have a GitHub code spaces, you can use this, or you can use your local Visual Studio Code. So that's a quick way of getting into it. And you can see all the stuff that I did. I did find that when I was using, when I was doing my menu, and this is really the Markdown id. This wasn't Vite. Markdown id was really picky about the formatting for the Markdown. So that was a little tricky. And in usage, I have found, so one of the ways that I was using it is I have a lot of the slides that I do for my courses in something called Reveal.js, which is like a Reveal.js project. And that project is also using 11t. So getting all those things to work together was a real challenge, but I did figure it out. Really, I think that if I was building a new project, this is probably what I would go with. So let's see if there's any questions on the chat. So is Angular dead? Well, Angular has sort of been dead to me for a long time. I really love Angular 1 when it came out. I think they did a poor job with Angular 2 Plus. It's a fantastic platform. It's really good for enterprise, and it has a strong sort of user base, and the people that use it enjoy using it. But I think that the web has moved much farther since Angular 2. It uses concept of decorators, which I never really enjoyed. So these days, I think I would probably either go for React, which React is a lot of fun, but there's a few things that I think are kind of get you at the beginning when you're trying it out. Like, for example, JSX feels a little bit weird to like have to remember to like change all the class names or the classes to class names. But it's a fantastic platform. That, or Vue is the one that I love the most. There's other ones like Svelte that are pretty interesting ideas. There's something new called Astro that I've been meaning to try, and it's not really a framework for really small things. If you watch some of my previous episodes, I've been using something called Alpine.js that I really love. If I was doing like a simple single page thing where I was actually doing, I did a more complicated version of this menu last time. So I would say Angular's not dead. It's not going to be dead because it does have an established user base. But if I was doing a new project these days, I would go for one of these newer platforms. And I think that, every once in a while, like Svelte is a really good idea. So somebody will come up with a really good idea. Svelte, the killer app thing of Svelte is that it sort of compiles your projects, and it sort of creates static versions of sites. Another up and coming one is this Astro that I've been telling you about. That I think the killer thing there is that the way that it loads the CSS makes it super efficient. And I think I showed you Alpine. It is like only 26 commands to learn in the whole platform. So it's super simple, and it's a little bit weird because we do everything in the HTML, but I really enjoyed using that one as well. So, I mean, I try all these different platforms so that maybe you don't have to. Which is easier for beginners? I would say Vue. Of all of them, Vue just makes immediate sense as a beginner. Also, it doesn't require any build tools. You just use a script tag. Alpine is crazy simple. Also, it's if you wanted to try something out, I would say Alpine, Vue, and then I would, if you want to get hired though, I think React clearly has the edge there. It just has a much larger established base, and so when you're looking for jobs out there, chances are, the market is going to be looking for some React. However, if you have like Vue and React aren't that much different. So I think either one is fine. It's just that I would say that you are more marketable if you have, React experience. So, but in terms of ease of use, it's clearly, I think, Alpine has the edge right now. And then Vue is pretty easy to learn. But, there's still, it can still get pretty complicated. That's where I think Alpine is better. I would love to know what you guys want me to do next. So make sure you comment on anything else that you have. I did want to point you to a couple of things that I wrote, because I thought, why don't we talk about some of the things that I've been thinking about this week? I wrote something about, so I have a newsletter that I do like about once a week. And I wrote this article on Facebook's outage, and I just wasn't particularly stressed by the outage. I don't know if anybody, really had a hard time with it, but I haven't been on Facebook for like 4 years. And I pretty much stay. I mean, I know I work for LinkedIn, but I really love that platform because I figure that whoever posts anything on LinkedIn, it also goes into their resume. So people are a little more professional, I think, on LinkedIn. The only reason that I would, that Facebook outage would impact me is my dad calls me a lot on WhatsApp, but that's only for like a few, hours a day. So I don't know if anybody had sort of opinions on the outage, or if you even care. I have some more questions, so that's great. So how about Next.js? Yes, so Next.js is related to React. There is a Vue version of Next.js called, I think, Nuxt.js, and there are newer things. So like it's a framework on top of a framework. So essentially, it's for giving you a quicker way of building apps and websites primarily that handles a lot of the things that you have to set up manually with something like React or Vue, like some of the routing on single page apps or multiple page apps. So they just released a new version of Next.js. I haven't really played around with Next that much, but I really been meaning to. So maybe that would be another future episode with some good demos. And then Astra is really the super hot one right now. So again, it's what it does basically is that it doesn't load any JavaScript that it doesn't need. So if you have some content like that is at like it won't even load any JavaScript unless it thinks that you need it. So unless you start interacting with things on the page, it doesn't even load the JavaScript. The thing about it is that it loads super fast, and it just grabs the things as it needs them, unlike other platforms. So I think it's more of a really cool idea. But I feel like it's, when things like Svelte and all these different platforms come up with something that is really just an idea or a concept that can be replicated in other places. I feel like something like React and Vue adjusted itself when React made some changes. So I feel like those are things that those platforms can do and become more efficient. The whole reason Svelte exists is it's the idea of pre-compiling everything so that it's faster. People are really obsessed with speed, so I guess it's good. So let's see. Have you tried Solid.js? I have not tried Solid.js, but so tell me about it, Ty. Why do you like it, or is it just something that you heard about? I love to try new things. Again, I think part of the reason why I'm here is because I can spend the time trying things out and making little demos. So and plus, like, I actually love that. Nux. So how about Nux? Yeah, Nux is like a Vue's, I think, version of Next.js. So it's just like a clone of Next, but for Vue. Yeah, I don't like if I feel like I would try Next, but not Nux because they're trying to do the same thing. But there's actually other ones that are coming out now that I think are going to supplant Nuxt, and I don't know about Next. Let's see. I can continue. Is this a way? Let's see. This is just a comment to somebody else. Do I prefer Vue of React? So hands down, Vue. It makes immediate sense to me what it's trying to do. Programming it is just, I think React for the most part made sense, but Vue made more sense, if that makes sense. So let's see. There's more questions here. So somebody says, the nice thing about Nuxt is that it excels in SEO and server-side rendering. Yeah, that's a problem that single-page applications often have. So there's a lot of ways that the platforms have to work around them. One of the things that they're trying to do also is to pre-render as much as possible and create like static versions of sites where that's possible as well. And so those platforms can really help you with that sort of thing. So let's see. I had a couple of other things that I had seen that were going on, and now, of course, I can't find the articles. But I usually post something on LinkedIn like about once a day. And if you go to my profile, actually, if you go to my posts, I post a lot of cool stuff. So, there I am right now. One of the things that has been happening in the industry is that people are trying to figure out how to work. And Sundar Pichai has this interesting take on what the future of work should be. He thinks that we should do 3 days a week with the flexibility to work remotely 4 weeks a year. I don't really like that. Like I've been remote for like 10 years plus. And it was weird when the rest of the world became remote because I felt everybody was essentially becoming me. And I thought it works just fine. Like you don't really need that much interaction with people. I do like a Christmas party or, maybe once or twice a year going to the mothership in California. It's a great place to visit. It's a great campus. But I don't know that you really have to have that just because I haven't had it for a long time. But I know it's become an adjustment. I don't know what your situation is, but I don't think that I agree with. I think this is a little bit it's not enough, like, to pull people in 3 times a day to the office. So he's trying to come up with like a hybrid model. Everybody's doing it differently. It's weird because I've been remote for 10 years. So, all right. So more questions. Thank you for the questions. I appreciate that. So where does Angular fit in all this? Lose some momentum. Yeah. I think Angular is clearly not in the lips of a lot of developers unless you're from a big company that made a big investment in Angular. Again, it's all about the jobs. So if a lot of the jobs are also location based. So if you were looking for a job at a certain company, they might be using Angular. I have a course on Angular 1 that people still watch because a couple of years ago, I went to the huge Angular conference. It's actually the greatest conference I've ever been in. It's really well put together. And, people were still struggling with Angular 1 at big companies. They never like upgraded to version like 2 plus. And so there's still a market, but I think it's a dwindling and diminishing market. So let's see. You don't need. Nice thing about no. Okay, so I have another question here. So you don't need Node.js for the backend if you're using Vue. You really don't need. Well, I mean, it depends on how you use Vue. Vue can be used in a number of different ways. What server you use doesn't really matter. You can use Vue.js, as a script tag, sort of like how you would load something like Bootstrap, just as a script element on a normal page. So you don't have to have all the build tools. That's one of the reasons I like it, because it has a really low barrier for new learners to learn it. But if you want to see something that does that even better, Alpine.js, my friend, check it out. Again, go watch some of my previous episodes. It's pretty crazy, but also pretty cool. So check that out. You can go to my blog, rabo.org. All the previous episodes are there. Also have a YouTube channel, which is like youtube.com/planet of the web. And I'm usually, like, if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's twitter.com/planet of the web as well. It's LinkedIn/in/planet of the web. I usually go to any social media platform and I try to get that name if I can. So don't grab it, please. I'm trying to always own it. I think the record goes out to TikTok. I joined TikTok literally for 30 seconds because I thought, oh my gosh, this thing is just awful. So I don't know if you guys are huge into TikTok, but I'm not. I had it for literally 30 seconds and then I deleted it from my phone, but at least I got the name. So Solid, let's see. Somebody says something about the Solid platform. That's cool. Let's see. Solid is like React, but has some interesting concepts that allow it to perform better than most frameworks. It's nothing that you would want to learn to find a job. Maybe cool for a side project. I'll check it out. I'll definitely take a look. If I think, I always explore frameworks when I think that it has like a new idea. Like if it's, the thing about React, for example, what I call the killer app about React was the virtual DOM was like the huge thing. The thing about Vue was it brought back like the script tag, which I think a lot of other people are doing. So I think React, you can just load a script tag, but it just doesn't perform as the same. And then things like Svelte came out with pre-compilation. Astro, it's all about, the idea of how it loads. Assembler CSS is something that I've been playing around with, which I loved. So it's Tailwinds was like a brand new idea. Tailwind CSS was like this crazy idea of why don't we just do everything in the HTML, which it's something that Alpine also does. There's so many frameworks out there. I think that I like it when it's like, okay, why are people talking about this? People have been talking about CSS and JavaScript for a long time. I'm not 100% sold, but I hear so much about it that I feel like I should go check it out. So let's see. I'll find out more. I'll definitely check out Solid. I think I've heard of, but I just haven't explored it. So that might be a good little quick demo for another for another show. I say quick demo, and sometimes these things take me like a couple days to do. So yeah, thank you. You're welcome. Yeah, definitely look into Vue. Everybody like really likes it. It's a good crowd, good conference. Evan Yu is amazing, smart. The guy who developed or created it. Uh, yes, I'll never get back those 30 seconds. Oh my, I mean, I think there's a lot of developer content now on TikTok, but there's so much more trash in that platform. I didn't get it. Maybe I'm off. Like maybe it's like the greatest thing, but I just couldn't do it. I'm like, okay, listen, this is the reason I quit Facebook. I was on Facebook, and I just found that I would check Facebook really quick, and then an hour would pass by, and I would be like, what did I just spend an hour doing? Looking at this post from this person, photos of this other person. The news was really sticky. They're really good at making things super sticky. So I just like, okay, I need to quit this because it's just sucking away time that, like you said, I'll never get back. And I don't really need that. I have plenty of things that I'd rather be doing. So yeah, spend more time doing interesting things than looking at crazy people dancing and stuff. Not my thing, but it's a very huge platform. So yeah, I don't know that I see any other questions. So that's gonna be it. Let me know. I'm thinking about taking a break next week just because I have another big project coming that I need to focus on. So yeah, I'll check out Solid.js for sure. I don't know. I was thinking about doing something on either Astro, although I think it's just such an idea that I don't know that I would do it. Maybe check out Stitches. I want to also check out some of the changes to projects in GitHub. So stay tuned. And yeah, send me ideas for things that you want me to cover. I will definitely take a look at them. And I love covering new things. So I will talk to you soon. Hopefully, maybe a couple of weeks from now. And we'll see you then. Here come the end credits, and they're a little bit loud. So check it out.